Hey everyone. It has been so many months, so many rewarding months of putting this game together. This is definitely not its first iteration. There have been several drafts and revisions. I just want to tell you about some of those today, where the game's come from and where it's gotten to. So you'll see pictures of the final assets attached to this post, and I'll show you some of the past relics for now. So when we were looking at cards and like what kind of cards would we want to play in this game, we had ideas of ways that would affect how the disc flies, beamers and lasers and stuff like that. Spicy, full commitment and chains and all that stuff. We had ideas of how the scorecard would interact with each other. So there's a group behind you. Take your time. A text from Bay, just something that interrupts your game and is random and unexpected and affects the game somehow. We thought about Dan the disc merchant, or retailers that were in our community that would give you a disc on the course. There's so many elements to consider. Like, in a disc golf game, do discs exist? Are they a thing that you acquire? Can you gain discs? Does that help you? How important is it that they're different speeds? Do you need that name brand disc? Started thinking about the copyright and all that, and we're like, oh yeah, do we avoid the names of discs? Do we use the names of discs? We just had so much fun coming up with it. I'll show you kind of how we started imagining using discs in the game. So you'll see something like, if this was a plane and it's a hexagon tile map, how does a disc fly, right? Is it the traditional goes straight and then fades? Can you have laser discs? Will those be too cheap? Will they be overpowered? How does an anhyzer really work? Is it going to go, are you throwing off to the side? You can't really go through them, or can you? So it was really fun just imagining how that could have worked. And also, yes, a hyzer and a big V kind of made sense, but also, was the width of that shot going to fit on this piece of paper? Were we going to really be able to make a playable hole with shots that shape this way? We also wanted to include things like, rollers and backhand rollers, forehand rollers, thumbers, all that stuff. I started imagining, okay, like at what point for the different speeds of discs does an anhyzer fly? Does it go straight for a bit? When does the turn kick in? And it had to depend on all these different discs. There's so many factors to consider. You can see we had some fun with the roller shots here. But we were also thinking, this roller is covering the entire width of the paper. Do we have to shrink the hexes down? Do we have to tone it back? What limitations can we make to not break the mechanics of this game? Also, hyzer bombs and spike hyzers. No, they don't go too far. But man, we were thinking about height on all these guys and thinking, okay, can we just make rules where it avoids the trees completely? Can you get over all trees? How are we going to communicate that easily to the new player to this game? How are we going to hook a player on this game and still get all these mechanics in there? Spoiler alert, we had to simplify it. And this was one of those first iterations where you can see that we'd try and imagine which driver we were using. I started, imagining the discs that were in our bag at the time, and just imagine, okay, how could they fly? And also the concept of power was being played along with. Are we always throwing at 100%? Are we feathering the disc? Do you have a throw that shoots at 80% power? At some point during the process, we thought we were going to be doing something like reduction of power, slight reduction of power, full power, but then maybe gambling a little bit and exerting yourself, and it would give you this a variation of flight paths where you didn't have as much control over where it would fly, but there was some reward there. Now, that didn't wind up making it to the final version, but it was really fun to put together. And you can kind of see how the exertion worked. Getting all of that information onto a flight path was just, it was a lot of work. you spent more time thinking about what the discs could do than you would play the game. Putting was also a really cool thing that we tackled. You'll see that I wanted to imagine in a hex environment that you can choose a range of 1 away, 2 away, etc. And were we going to have different putters? Did that matter? Are you going to care that could you really not make the shot because you didn't have an overstable putter? Like, come on. So we really had to determine what was a real idea and what wasn't. But we had a lot of fun along the way. Got, all the discs in my bag. We were messing around with flight paths. You'll recognize some of these, cloud breakers, and just having a blast with the difference between understable, stable, overstable. So yeah, that became a blast. I really jumped the gun and I committed to this idea before I should have. And I went and printed out what these could look like. Can you imagine having to play with an entire sheet of paper? But you can see for a roller that I kind of had heights indicated for what a backhand roller might look like. And yeah, it was an idea. We did get closer to the to figuring out those mechanics for the anhyzers and such. So you can see we had all these different. Can you see that all right? Spike hyzers, tomahawk thumbers, hyzers. Oh man, this was so much fun to put together. And then finally, the idea of, okay, there's a basket. You're 1 away, you're 2 away, you're 3 away, you're 4 spaces away. What would you need to do to get it in? So I really gave that a lot of thought. Played around with dice and spinners and all that sorts of thing. So at some point, and these all of these did not make the final version, but I had such a blast putting together with my friend Lyndon Grosso and other friends I was living with at the time, these different flight pattern ideas. And just to avoid copyright, I was having fun naming them after things that weren't quite the name, cloud breaker, fog cutter, stuff like that. And we just kept making them. We just kept making the Justice or the Captain America. Yeah, so that was just lots of fun. And there's so many I'd love to show you, but these are old ideas and they didn't make it. I'm going to shove those all over here. Yeah, so even then we had to figure out what was the course going to look like. And like, what can I really bring to the table? What would really work on a kitchen table? And when you start thinking about how small these hexagons would have to be to make a course work, it was bonkers. You can see how you'd have this ridiculously shaped piece of real estate and trying to make holes not overlap with each other. How much information could you fit into these tiny spots? This just wasn't going to be a playable board map. But I doubled down. I'm not gonna lie. I said, you know what? How wrong could this be? How wrong could this be? And I took one of my favorite courses, Raptors Knoll, and I pulled up the aerial map of the course, as so many of you have aerial maps of your hometown course. And you're thinking, okay, yeah, I'll just make the map and it'll be fine. Oh man, that did not work. The hex-based environment, I mean, I'll turn this thing around. You can see it became an absolute monster. I don't want to put that all together for you, but a world-class course and a hilarious map that's just not feasible to play on any reasonable sized table. So that it really came down making the ideas not smaller, but fitting the ideas into a playable state so that I could really bring this board game to you. We started bringing the holes one at a so that you'd have starting pads. You'd have reasonable paths that turns out if you make a hex-based game with flight paths for discs, if they're following straight lines, like there's certain flow to hexagons that doesn't work. And I found out what that was. Anyways, really looking forward to showing you more about how this game really works with the finished product, and lots more to get into. Yeah, you'll see we have just tons of drafts and stuff. And man, I wanted to show you more, but I got to get back to work on this. So I will talk to you soon. All right.